Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Your hosts have built this spot over the past 40 years, meeting every day with people who are in the headlines and behind the real stories. Today, Rob Walgate and Alan C. Duncan from the Public Square are joined by David Zanotti, the CEO of the American Policy Roundtable.
A lot of people feel that in terms of the process, this is the craziest presidential election we've ever had. Is that true?
So I have to talk about what's driving everybody nuts. I mean, it's just amazing. This election is making people crazy. People are basically saying, we've never seen anything like this. We don't even know where to put our eyes. And we certainly don't know what media reports to believe or to even trust. And it feels like it could never have been as crazy as this. So we were talking about this on the Public Square and going back and doing a history. If you want to go over to publicsquare.com, you can hear a lot of that history in regards to going back to 1960, going forward as to how weird elections have been over the years. But all that's, that's all past. The truth of the matter is this one has got weirdness to it that we have never seen before.
I was going to say some of the 60s ones were giving it a run for its money, but we're still not done yet. That's the other thing.
Okay, and we're not done yet. So before we get to what we think might happen, which is fair game, let's talk about what we see is happening that is making people so upset. I get right to it. When you start to look at how all the pieces flow together and the people who are behind the scenes as to how Joe Biden got nominated for president in the first place, it's like suddenly we're into the sequel. It seems like we've all forgotten that Joe Biden couldn't win a primary in the 2020 election.
I had forgotten that. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I remember specifically Jim Clyburn helped cut the deal in South Carolina to unite, to rally around Joe Biden. And then just coincidentally, Joe Biden starts to run the table, and all of a sudden he's got Kamala Harris as his vice presidential pick, which he said he was going to do as far as boxes that need to be checked for the qualifications of the vice president.
Now, just to make certain that we've got this right about the Clyburn thing, another interesting piece of history that is actually videotaped, I've seen it with my eyes, I've heard it with my ears, was on the rostrum of the Biden inauguration, right there where he made the speech. And everybody kind of comes out, it's pretty long, pronounced, that whole thing. On that rostrum, George W. Bush walked up to Congressman Clyburn and said, "So you're the Messiah here, you're the savior of this whole thing." Bush knew that Clyburn put the deal together. There was no hiding it.
No.
There's no conspiracy. It's all in plain sight.
Was he a fan of that? Did he like that happened?
I think he was paying respects to where the power source was, and that's all fine.
And saving us from what?
Or maybe he meant that he saved his party.
I don't think it's any secret that the Trump family and the Bush families are not on each other's Christmas card lists.
He could have meant it in regards to Trump. He could have also been paying him a compliment for doing what had to happen for his team to win, and that would be Clyburn's team.
Yeah,
okay?
Clyburn did do what happened.
It may just been common respect. I don't know. But the fact is, this is not a conspiracy. This is in plain sight. So the deal was cut. Okay, so Joe Biden gets a nomination, and then Joe Biden is promptly instructed to stay home. Now, COVID was the cover for why he got to stay home. My question is, did the people who made the deal already know that his diminished skills were such that he could not execute a full campaign for the presidency? And so they had to be extremely careful what they did with him out there.
Well, no one on their inner circle team is going to expose that, and no one in the mainstream corporate media is going to expose that as well. They've went to excessive lengths to cover up whatever Joe Biden's wanted covered up.
So now we've got everything covered by COVID. Then we've got all the crazy race cars of breaking the laws or bending the laws or amending the laws or ignoring the laws through COVID and election processes. And we end up with this giant mail-in ballot that was initiated by the finances that came from the allies of the Center for American Progress, Stacey Abrams, and all that history. Joe Biden wins. Now he's president of the United States. question I've got is he wasn't exactly ever the most out front president we've ever had. Didn't have lots of press conferences. He's still president of the United States. And today we don't know what his actual capacity is. Does anybody know what Joe Biden did today? Does anybody know what his schedule was? We're at a point in time where how long has it been since Joe Biden has actually held a news conference and answered questions?
Well, when he did, they called it a big boy news conference, like it was some big deal that a president of the United States takes questions from the press. But meanwhile, all those questions are basically pre-approved because he has a list of reporters that he is going to call upon because he can't go for a free-for-all. Because when he does, when he was on the tarmac not long ago and someone said, well, Speaker Johnson said your proposal is dead on arrival, talking about the term limits in regards to the Supreme Court, Joe Biden's response was, tell him he's dead on arrival or something to that effect.
That's the old Joe.
I'm like, yeah. I mean, this is Joe Biden. My wife's favorite thing is when he says he was honoring someone, the guy's in a wheelchair, Chuck. He's like, stand up, Chuck. And then
another
Chuck,
famous.
He's, oh, God bless you, Chuck. He knows he can't.
Another famous Bidenism. But the other thing people don't realize, and that's just look. There's these are just facts. Okay, Joe Biden when he ran, it was his third run for the presidency.
Yeah.
He left the race twice before because he was found to have plagiarized speeches and information, and it was so embarrassing that he had to get out of the race.
He's got 9 lives, man.
Yeah, and a lot of them are checkered with a whole lot of interesting stuff. All right, look, he's still the president of the United States, but no one seems to care. I'm not necessarily thinking that's a bad thing. I'm just saying.
Well, I think it's a bad thing. Here's why I think it's a bad thing. Because when I read the Her report that had a discussion with Joe Biden and others in regards to his storage of documents that related to his time as a senator and the vice president and where they were stored and whether or not that broke law, that report came back and said, basically, he's a forgetful old man that the jury would never prosecute because it was not his intent.
And he's kindly.
Yeah. But yet he has the mental qualifications and capacity to remain in the Oval Office as the commander in chief.
But not to run for the office.
But yeah, okay.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what is really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to The Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast. Or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America is really talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
Now, we're repeating things that have now become old. This is like a stale rewatch of a Netflix series. I get that. Okay.
But you have to relive them so you don't repeat the same mistakes.
Well, and here's the other thing about all this. It's so unsettling because that's the platform from which this presidency came and is still being operated. We're still living sort of in the basement. Now it comes time for him not to be president anymore. And the idea is, okay, he's out, Kamala's in. Well, okay, what's the process by which that's done? There's got to obviously be a process, right? If he was resigning the presidency, we go to the Constitution, we follow the rules, and we move all the pieces and parts. We got to get a vice president. It's all in rules. So he's not going to run for the presidency anymore. Well, okay, it's okay. Kamala's got it. Says who?
Pelosi, Schumer, Obama, Podesta. I mean, that's who said. The American people didn't say. The Democrat constituents didn't say. People that are members of the party didn't say. This was a rigged system from the beginning on the Democrat side in the sense that they didn't allow a formidable opponent in the primary process to the sitting president to begin with. No one was permitted to run against him.
So we've got someone now who is the nominee of the Democrat Party who has not received a single vote in a primary to be able to hold that position. It was simply conferred upon her.
And the interesting thing is, you know, the Trump campaign was running a campaign against Joe Biden. Now you have to completely change all of your decision making, maybe your ads,
Maybe they
just
should
the way you
sue
talk.
them.
There's listen, the amount.
It's like
look at all the money we invested in you, Joe.
Well, it'd just be like you suddenly just started, you researched, you game filmed for one team, and then at halftime, or no, like the third quarter, just another team came out.
It was just like, never mind, we got somebody else.
Yeah, just a whole new team from the street over comes down, and you got to, I didn't prepare for this team.
So you bring a whole new team on in the third quarter. Is that what it looks like you're going to lose? So now I got to switch the team. We got to bring a whole new team in. Okay. I guess, this is one of those crazy things about election law. I guess the reality is there's no laws that says you can't do this way. So that's what they're doing.
Well, and the Democrat Party changed the rules that as far as the nomination process to allow them to do that, because there's going to be delegates in some states that aren't really fond of this or happy about it, but they're going to do it anyway.
So they left their 14 million people who voted for Joe Biden behind. They made what they think is the best choice in the interest of their party, the nation, whatever. And so there we are. So we've got this situation that, as far as process goes, is being made up as we go along. It's just being made up. Okay. So this is where we're heading. This is where the election's going to end up. I get all that. But the question that I have is, okay, Joe Biden's still president of the United States.
Yeah, that's an issue. If he's not qualified to run, how is he qualified to have the nuclear codes? How is he qualified to make the decisions that need to be made? I mean, we have conflicts. Again, we'll go back to the speech that he gave that almost caused me to wreck my car, where he bragged about not being in military conflict. And I would argue that the withdrawal from Afghanistan was horrific and cost us American lives. There's conflict in the Middle East right now, and we know what's happening in Ukraine. And if there was a different administration in office, I'm not sure any of those would have happened that way.
I want to go back, though, to the process. The process. How did we get from keep him in the basement because of COVID, go out and have some ice cream cones, and he won? Give him all the credit in the world. They won. They pulled that election off. It was amazing strategy. It was a huge amount of money that they spent, and they pulled it off. I'm not suggesting for a second that anybody stole anything. I'm just saying it was certainly the strangest thing we'd ever seen until now. And it just so happens that it's the same people.
Well, yeah.
So my question is, what's next?
What is next? I do think, the thing we're not saying out loud that I'll say out loud is the Democrats put themselves in this position because they knew in today's day and age, there was no way they were going to remove the black female from the ticket to put someone else in her place that may be a white male. That's that's reality.
You really think that's what happened?
Oh, I 100% think that's what happened. What is the story that they're going to run?
Wait a second. Let me push on that for a second. All right. So I understand what you're saying because of the nature and the basic and the conduct and the practices and the ethos and the culture of the Democrat Party. They couldn't remove this person because to do so would have just looked so bad and violated so much that they've been teaching, preaching, and advocating. So what you're saying is that they said, okay, we'll take her and we'll just build whatever we have to build and spend whatever we have to spend to make sure she becomes president.
Yeah.
That was an easier, okay, all right, I get that.
And I think you're going to, when it's all said and done.
She is the vice president of the United States.
When it's all said and done, the white guy is going to be her vice presidential pick. Because it'll fit the narrative. I don't think it'll be Pete Buttigieg. Remember, everyone talks about Pete Buttigieg being this national treasure. If I'm not mistaken, and I know it's the internet, so I can be fact checked, I don't think Pete Buttigieg has ever gotten more than 13,000, 14,000 votes in his life in one election process. We're talking about him being on the ticket for president or vice president of the United States. That's a pretty big jump. He's also seen some debacles in the transportation sector under his watch. So I think there's an issue there, as well as the issue that...
But my question is, I know that it will happen at the convention. There'll be a ratifying vote for the vice presidency, so I can follow the process there. But I'm trying to follow the bouncing ball from the basement in COVID to Joe disappearing. And then Joe disappears and Kamala appears. And I guess what I can't figure out is, what difference do the rules make? Now, if the rules don't matter going into the office, is it a fair question to say what happens once you're there?
Well, I think it shows that maybe it's more than one person that's making the decisions. I think this was a Schumer, Pelosi, Obama decision-making process, the ones at the top, as well as the money people at the top of the Democratic Party.
Do you think that's the one positive that's coming out of this debacle, is that people that are paying attention realize that that's how the game is played? It's sort of a peeling back of the curtain. You're seeing who some of the players are. You're seeing how it works.
That's a great question.
Fetterman said it best when he said the people that are praising Joe Biden for stepping away from the campaign are the ones whose fingerprints are on the knife in his back. I mean, the people that are saying, yes, he did their
figuratively speaking.
Figuratively speaking.
That was a senator speaking, not us. All right. So the next question, though, and that is even more troubling to me than watching politicians be politicians, is where is the accountability? Why is it that the only people asking questions like this are sitting around this table? And there are other people in the media doing it as well. But why is it that the major outlets, the corporate media, the giants, are completely silent on the process?
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.